Diamonds and Dollars, a Harbor City Story. Chapter 1. The Bottom Line Crisis. The crack of the bat echoed through Lighthouse Stadium as Elena Santos stared at her computer screen in disbelief. The morning sun cast long shadows across her cramped office beneath the grandstands, but the numbers glowing before her painted an even darker picture. $45 million in annual losses. The Harbor City Mariners weren't just struggling, they were hemorrhaging money at a rate that would force bankruptcy within months. Elena clutched the worn baseball her late father had given her, a memento from his 30 years as the stadium's head groundskeeper. He had taught her that baseball was more than entertainment. It was community, tradition, and hope wrapped in 9 innings. Now that tradition faced extinction, and somehow she had been chosen to save it. Her phone buzzed with a message that sent chills down her spine. Emergency meeting, executive conference room, new owner present, 10 minutes. Elena hurried through corridors filled with the sounds she loved, the pop of gloves, the murmur of early arriving fans, the rustle of programs. She passed a framed photograph of her father from the night the city honored his 3 decades of service, his smile reflecting the pride of someone who understood that baseball mattered beyond wins and losses. Victoria Sterling commanded the conference room with the presence of someone accustomed to making difficult decisions. Tall, impeccably dressed, and armed with a leather portfolio worth more than Elena's monthly salary, Sterling delivered her ultimatum with surgical precision. Ladies and gentlemen, we have exactly 4 months to make this franchise profitable, or I will sell to the highest bidder who will relocate to a market that understands modern baseball economics, Sterling announced, clicking through a presentation that laid bare the Mariners' financial crisis. We are losing $45 million annually. Debt payments due in September will force bankruptcy unless we demonstrate immediate profitability improvements. Elena felt the room's collective shock as Sterling continued. I did not acquire this team for sentimental reasons. I respect tradition, but I will not subsidize failure. Present me with a viable profit plan, or watch this franchise disappear from Harbor City forever. After the meeting, Elena sought out Frank "Bulldog" Morrison, the gruff operations manager whose weathered face told stories of 4 decades in professional baseball. Frank looked up from his desk covered with maintenance schedules and vendor contracts, immediately recognizing the shell-shocked expression of someone learning how brutal baseball business could be. Sterling dropped the hammer, didn't she? Frank asked, gesturing for Elena to sit in the worn chair across from his desk. His office walls displayed photographs spanning his career from player to coach to operations manager, each image capturing baseball's evolution from simple game to complex entertainment industry. $45 million in losses, Frank, Elena whispered. How does a team lose that much money when people still love the game? Frank leaned back, studying Elena with the patience of someone who had mentored countless young employees. Because most people think baseball revenue comes from ticket sales and concession stands. They don't understand that modern baseball is a media business, a real estate business, a licensing business, and a dozen other revenue streams they've never considered. He pulled out a thick binder filled with contracts and financial documents representing the hidden complexity of professional sports economics. Elena, you're good with numbers, but you're thinking like a fan instead of a business analyst. Every successful franchise generates hundreds of millions annually through revenue sources most supporters never see. Frank opened the binder to reveal television contracts, sponsorship agreements, and licensing deals that dwarfed traditional ticket revenue. Our local television deal pays $12 million annually for broadcast rights. Sounds impressive until you learn that teams in larger markets receive $60 to $80 million for the same content. We're leaving tens of millions on the table because previous ownership signed long-term contracts without understanding their true value. Elena studied the documents, beginning to grasp the scope of missed opportunities contributing to the franchise's crisis. But we can't change our market size overnight. How do we compete with teams that have natural advantages? By being smarter, more creative, and more connected to our community than they are, Frank replied, his voice carrying conviction born from experience. Teams that treat fans as partners rather than customers consistently outperform those focused purely on profit maximization. But first, you need to understand how this business really works. Frank spent the next 2 hours walking Elena through the intricate web of revenue streams powering modern baseball franchises. Media rights represented the largest single income source for most teams, with national contracts through Major League Baseball supplemented by local television and radio deals varying dramatically based on market size and negotiation skill. The Houston Astros generate over $60 million annually from their local media deal, Frank explained, showing comparative data highlighting the Mariners' underperformance. They achieved that by embracing new distribution channels, negotiating performance-based escalators, and retaining digital rights that can be monetized independently. Corporate sponsorships offered another massive opportunity the Mariners had barely exploited. While other teams generated $20 to $30 million annually through stadium naming deals and corporate partnerships, Harbor City had focused on small local businesses unable to afford premium pricing. Successful sponsorship programs treat corporate partners as stakeholders in community engagement rather than simply purchasing logo visibility, Frank continued, pointing to examples of integrated partnerships that enhanced fan experience while generating substantial revenue. Merchandise and licensing operations represented global revenue streams extending far beyond stadium souvenir stands. Teams with strong brand management generated millions through jersey sales, memorabilia, and licensing agreements with manufacturers worldwide. As afternoon shadows lengthened across Frank's office, Elena began seeing the Mariners' crisis not as inevitable decline, but as the result of strategic failures that could potentially be corrected. The team possessed valuable assets, a historic ballpark, loyal fan base, and compelling community story, but had failed to monetize these advantages effectively. Frank, if we understand all these revenue opportunities, why haven't we pursued them? Elena asked, her analytical mind formulating potential solutions. Frank's expression grew serious, because previous ownership treated this team like a hobby rather than a business, and because making changes requires expertise, capital, and risk-taking that scared people comfortable with mediocrity. Sterling may be ruthless, but she's right. This franchise needs to evolve or die. Elena left Frank's office as stadium lights flickered on for that evening's game, her mind racing with possibilities that seemed both exciting and overwhelming. She had 4 months to master baseball economics, develop a comprehensive recovery plan, and convince a skeptical owner that community-focused strategies could generate profits necessary to keep the Harbor City Mariners in Harbor City. The sound of fans cheering a home run echoed through the stadium as Elena walked to her car, carrying the weight of an entire community's hopes. But for the first time since Sterling's ultimatum, she felt something more powerful than fear, the beginning of a plan that might save America's pastime in the city that had loved it for 8 decades. Chapter 2: Beyond the Turnstiles. Elena arrived at Lighthouse Stadium the next morning, armed with notebooks, spreadsheets, and determination to understand every aspect of baseball's financial ecosystem. Frank had agreed to continue her education, starting with the most crucial revenue stream, media rights and broadcasting deals that often determined whether franchises thrived or merely survived. "Forget everything you think you know about television contracts," Frank said, as he led Elena through the stadium's broadcast facilities. "Most fans see a 3-hour game, but media companies are buying content that fills 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 12 months a year." In the darkened control room, multiple camera feeds flickered across monitors, showing angles from dugouts, bullpens, stands, and sky. A producer gave signals like a conductor, orchestrating a symphony of sight and sound. Elena watched advertisements roll seamlessly during inning breaks, corporate names and logos dancing across screens with jingles designed to be both memorable and forgettable. Frank explained how modern baseball media deals extended far beyond live game broadcasts to include pre-game and post-game shows, highlight packages, historical programming, and digital content reaching audiences worldwide. The Mariners' current local television contract, negotiated in 2010, paid $12 million annually, but failed to account for streaming distribution, international licensing, or digital highlight packages now representing significant revenue opportunities. Teams in similar markets have doubled or tripled their media revenue by embracing new distribution channels, Frank continued, showing Elena comparative data. They negotiate performance-based contract escalators, retain rights to digital content, and create hybrid deals combining traditional broadcast with streaming partnerships. Elena learned about emerging opportunities in streaming partnerships where teams could bypass traditional television entirely to reach younger audiences through digital platforms. Several franchises had signed groundbreaking deals with streaming services, creating new revenue streams while building direct relationships with fans who preferred consuming content on mobile devices and computers. The Milwaukee Brewers increased their media revenue by 40% through a streaming partnership that reaches displaced fans nationwide, Frank explained. They understood that their content had value beyond geographic boundaries, especially among younger demographics that traditional broadcasters struggle to reach. The education continued as Frank demonstrated how sponsorship and partnership deals had evolved from simple logo placement to comprehensive brand integration programs. Elena discovered that successful corporate partnerships required understanding what companies needed beyond visibility, association with community values, access to customer demographics, and platforms for employee engagement that justified premium pricing. They toured the stadium's corporate hospitality areas, where Frank pointed out empty suites representing millions in potential revenue. Companies don't just buy tickets or advertising space, he explained. They're purchasing association with tradition, community connection, and emotional engagement that sports create uniquely. Elena studied the facility with new eyes, seeing every surface as potential partnership opportunity. Naming rights for the ballpark could generate 15 to 20 million annually if positioned correctly, while smaller partnerships for everything from batting practice sponsorships to promotional nights created steady revenue streams adding up to substantial annual income. Frank shared success stories from teams that had transformed corporate relationships from transactional purchases into strategic partnerships. The San Francisco Giants increased sponsorship revenue by 70% by treating corporate partners as community stakeholders rather than simply customers buying advertising space, he noted. Their approach emphasized authentic integration that enhanced fan experience while delivering measurable value to partners. The exploration continued with merchandise and licensing operations that extended the team's brand far beyond stadium boundaries. Elena learned how successful franchises treated their logos, colors, and identity as global commodities, while maintaining authentic connections to local communities. The Chicago Cubs generate over $40 million annually from merchandise sales, Frank explained, showing licensing agreements covering everything from jerseys and hats to home goods and collectibles. They achieved that by understanding their brand represents more than baseball. It represents tradition, community, and identity that people want to display year-round. Elena discovered that the Mariners had barely scratched the surface of merchandise opportunities, focusing primarily on basic apparel sold at stadium concession stands. Successful teams had embraced online sales, international distribution, and product diversification, generating revenue 12 months annually, rather than just during baseball season. Frank introduced concepts that seemed revolutionary compared to the Mariners' current approach: player development programs creating valuable trade assets while building community connections, digital content creation, monetizing the team's story year-round through documentaries and exclusive access programming and fan engagement initiatives, treating supporters as stakeholders rather than simply customers. As they walked through stadium concourses, Frank pointed out missed opportunities representing millions in potential revenue. The Mariners' food and beverage operations barely broke even because they relied on traditional concession models rather than embracing local culinary partnerships that could attract visitors beyond game days. Successful teams have transformed their stadiums into year-round entertainment destinations, Frank explained, describing how other franchises hosted concerts, corporate events, and community celebrations, generating income during off-seasons. We have a beautiful facility in downtown's heart, but we only use it 81 days per year. Elena began understanding that the Mariners' financial crisis resulted not from inevitable decline, but from failing to evolve with changing industry economics. The team possessed valuable assets, historic ballpark, loyal fan base, compelling story, but had failed to monetize these advantages effectively. Frank concluded the day's education with emerging revenue opportunities forward-thinking teams were already exploiting. Sports betting partnerships generating 20 to 30 million annually through data licensing and in-stadium facilities, corporate hospitality programs creating premium experiences that commanded luxury pricing, and digital engagement platforms that turned casual fans into year-round content consumers. Elena, everything we've discussed represents opportunities, not guarantees, Frank warned as evening shadows stretched across the stadium. Success requires expertise, capital, and flawless execution under intense pressure. Sterling gave us 4 months to prove these theories work in practice. Elena left the stadium that evening with her head spinning from information overload, but her determination stronger than ever. She had begun seeing the path forward, but now faced the daunting task of transforming theoretical knowledge into practical solutions that could save the Harbor City Mariners while preserving everything that made them worth saving. Chapter 3. The New Revenue Playbook. Elena spent the weekend transforming her crash course in baseball economics into a comprehensive recovery plan that balanced aggressive revenue generation with respect for community traditions, making the Harbor City Mariners special. Her dining room table disappeared under spreadsheets, market research, and financial projections that would determine whether the franchise survived or became another casualty of modern sports business. Monday morning found Elena in Frank's office, armed with a presentation representing her best hope of convincing Victoria Sterling that community-focused strategies could generate profits necessary to keep the team in Harbor City. Frank reviewed her work with the critical eye of someone who had seen countless well-intentioned plans fail due to poor execution or unrealistic expectations. Elena's strategy focused on 5 key pillars, each designed to maximize revenue while strengthening community connections. The first pillar involved renegotiating media rights to include streaming components that could triple current revenue. Her research had identified StreamSport, a rapidly growing digital platform, as a potential partner for a groundbreaking local streaming deal, revolutionizing how smaller market teams reached audiences. StreamSport has been aggressive about acquiring local content in similar markets, Elena explained to Frank, showing her analysis of streaming partnerships and broadcast negotiations. They might pay premium rates for exclusive digital distribution rights that our current television contract doesn't cover, potentially increasing our media revenue from $12 million to $36 million annually. The second pillar focused on securing major stadium naming rights partnerships. Elena's research had identified Harbor Tech Industries, a growing technology company expanding operations in Harbor City, as a potential partner that could provide immediate capital infusion while celebrating the city's economic diversification. Harbor Tech Stadium has authenticity that corporate sponsors value, Elena continued, presenting her partnership proposals. Their CEO grew up attending games here, creating emotional connection beyond pure business considerations. This isn't just about corporate visibility. They want association with community tradition and future growth. Elena's third pillar involved implementing dynamic ticket pricing that offered affordable options for families while maximizing revenue from premium seating and corporate hospitality. Her research showed that teams like the San Francisco Giants had increased ticket revenue by 40% while actually improving accessibility for working-class fans through transparent, fair pricing strategies. The key is transparency and value, Elena explained, showing Frank her pricing models. Fans understand that popular games cost more, but they need genuine alternatives and clear benefits. We can't price out families who've supported this team for generations. The fourth pillar treated Lighthouse Stadium as a year-round community entertainment venue rather than a facility sitting empty 10 months annually. Elena's research showed that successful teams generated 15 to 20% of total revenue from non-baseball events, including concerts, corporate meetings, and community celebrations. Elena's fifth pillar represented perhaps her most ambitious proposal, treating supporters as stakeholders through membership programs, exclusive content access, and community investment opportunities, creating emotional and financial connections beyond traditional ticket purchases. This differentiates us from corporate-owned franchises, Elena said, her voice carrying passion that had sustained her through weeks of intensive research. We're not just selling entertainment, we're offering community membership and shared identity that people can't get from streaming services or video games. Her financial projections showed potential revenue increases of 60 to 80% within 3 years through comprehensive implementation of modern baseball economics. Elena understood that success required perfect execution under intense scrutiny from Sterling, who would evaluate progress monthly rather than waiting for long-term results. Frank helped Elena refine her presentation for maximum impact, emphasizing measurable milestones and conservative projections that could be exceeded rather than optimistic forecasts, creating unrealistic expectations. They practiced addressing potential objections and prepared backup strategies for scenarios where primary initiatives faced unexpected obstacles. The morning of Elena's presentation arrived with the weight of community expectations and personal career consequences. Elena entered the conference room carrying not just financial projections, but hopes of employees, fans, and local businesses whose futures depended on the Harbor City Mariners' survival. Victoria Sterling reviewed Elena's materials with analytical precision that had made her successful in corporate acquisitions, asking pointed questions about implementation timelines, capital requirements, and competitive risks that could undermine projected results. Her skepticism was evident but professional, reflecting genuine interest in solutions rather than predetermined rejection. Your media rights analysis is compelling, Sterling acknowledged, studying Elena's streaming partnership proposals. But renegotiating existing contracts requires legal expertise and industry connections that could cost more than projected revenue increases. Elena had anticipated this concern, presenting research on legal precedents and industry contacts through Frank's network that could facilitate complex negotiations. She emphasized that media rights represented the fastest path to significant revenue increases, making legal investments worthwhile, even requiring short-term capital expenditure. Sterling's most challenging questions focused on sustainability of community-based strategies in an increasingly corporate sports landscape. Elena, your proposals assume that authentic fan engagement translates to higher revenue. What evidence proves that sentiment converts to spending? This question struck at Elena's entire strategy's heart, requiring her to present data showing teams with strong community connections consistently outperformed purely profit-driven franchises in both revenue generation and long-term value appreciation. She cited examples from successful small-market teams that had thrived by treating fans as partners rather than customers. Mrs. Sterling, teams like the Green Bay Packers and Pittsburgh Steelers have proven that community ownership models generate unprecedented fan loyalty and financial stability, Elena responded confidently. Their supporters don't just buy tickets, They invest emotionally and financially in franchise success because they feel genuine ownership in outcomes. After 2 hours of intense questioning, Sterling closed Elena's presentation materials and looked directly across the conference table. "Ms. Santos, your analysis is thorough and your passion evident. I'm willing to approve probationary implementation with strict performance metrics and monthly progress reviews." Elena felt her heart racing as Sterling outlined conditional approval terms. "You'll have access to necessary capital for media rights renegotiation and corporate partnership development, but revenue improvements must be demonstrable within 60 days. Failure to meet projected milestones will result in immediate cost-cutting measures prioritizing short-term profitability over community considerations." Frank squeezed Elena's shoulder as they left the conference room, both understanding they had won a battle, but faced a war testing every aspect of their comprehensive recovery plan. Elena had 4 months to prove that heart and profit could work together in modern professional sports. The afternoon sun streamed through stadium concourses as Elena and Frank began the most important project of their careers, saving the Harbor City Mariners while preserving everything that made them worth saving. The clock was ticking, but for the first time since Sterling's ultimatum, Elena felt confident they had a plan worthy of the community that had supported their team for 8 decades. Chapter 4: The Execution Challenge. Elena's alarm buzzed at 5:30 Monday morning, beginning what would become the most intense period of her professional life. With Sterling's conditional approval secured, she faced the daunting reality of transforming theoretical strategies into measurable results while the Harbor City Mariners struggled through a disappointing season on the field. The timing couldn't have been worse. The team had lost 8 of their last 10 games, attendance was dropping below 15,000 per game, and local media coverage focused more on trade rumors than championship hopes. Elena understood that successful revenue strategies required fan engagement, but engaging supporters during a losing streak tested every principle she had learned about sports marketing. Frank met Elena in the stadium's administrative offices before dawn, both carrying coffee and determination to begin implementation despite challenging circumstances. Their first priority involved initiating media rights negotiations with Streamsport, while simultaneously exploring options for early termination of the existing television contract, costing millions in lost revenue. "Streamsport's regional director is flying in Thursday," Frank reported, reviewing his contacts in the sports media industry. "They're interested in our proposal, but they want audience engagement data and demographic information proving Harbor City fans will embrace streaming distribution." Elena had spent the weekend analyzing viewing patterns, social media engagement, and fan demographic data supporting their streaming partnership proposal. Her research showed Harbor City supporters were younger and more digitally engaged than traditional baseball audiences, making them ideal candidates for innovative distribution strategies. The challenge involved proving fan interest while current attendance and television ratings reflected the team's on-field struggles. Elena developed a creative solution, launching Community Pride Nights, celebrating local businesses, organizations, and traditions while generating sponsorship revenue and demonstrating authentic community connections, making Harbor City unique. Her first Community Pride Night honored the city's fishing industry, partnering with local restaurants to create specialty menu items while featuring maritime traditions during pre-game ceremonies. The event attracted over 25,000 fans, despite the team's losing record, generating significant social media engagement and demonstrating revenue potential of authentic community programming. "The response exceeded our wildest expectations," Elena told Frank after reviewing attendance and engagement data. "Social media mentions increased by 300%, concession sales hit season highs, and we sold out of special merchandise within 2 hours. This proves that authentic community programming can drive revenue regardless of on-field performance." Elena's success with Community Pride Nights caught Harbor Tech Industries' attention, whose CEO had grown up attending Mariners games and understood emotional value of associating his expanding company with hometown traditions. Their preliminary discussions about stadium naming rights progressed faster than Elena had dared hope. "They want to be part of the community revival story," Elena explained to Frank after her initial meeting with Harbor Tech executives. "This isn't just about corporate visibility. They see partnership with the Mariners as authentic connection to Harbor City's identity and future growth." However, Elena's biggest challenge emerged when veteran first baseman Tommy Rodriguez's expensive contract became a financial liability threatening to derail the entire recovery plan. Rodriguez was beloved by fans, respected by teammates, and represented the kind of community connection making Harbor City special. But his $4 million annual salary consumed resources needed for revenue generation initiatives. The decision to explore trading Rodriguez created Elena's first major crisis, testing her ability to balance financial necessity with community sentiment. Local media criticized the potential move as evidence that new ownership cared more about profit than tradition, while fan groups organized protests demanding Rodriguez remain with the only team he had ever known. Elena found herself explaining complex financial realities to emotional supporters who saw Rodriguez's potential departure as betrayal of everything the Mariners represented. Frank helped her navigate the delicate communication challenge, emphasizing that difficult decisions sometimes serve the greater good of preserving the franchise for future generations. "Tommy understands the situation better than anyone," Frank told Elena after meeting privately with Rodriguez. "He'd rather be traded to a contender than watch the team disappear entirely. But we need to handle this carefully to maintain fan trust during a critical period." Elena's solution involved transparent communication about financial challenges while demonstrating that cost-cutting measures were part of comprehensive revenue growth rather than simple budget reduction. She organized town hall meetings where fans could ask questions directly, creating dialogue that built understanding even when decisions were painful. The stream sport negotiations intensified as Elena presented viewing data from Community Pride nights, exceeding both companies' expectations. Harbor City fans had embraced digital engagement opportunities, creating social media content and interactive participation, demonstrating market potential for innovative streaming partnerships. "We're not trying to compete with the New York Yankees for casual viewers," Elena explained during the crucial stream sport meeting. "We're offering something more valuable, genuine community storytelling and fan engagement that creates loyal, interactive audiences perfect for streaming platforms." Stream Sport's preliminary offer exceeded Elena's most optimistic projections. A 5-year deal worth $18 million annually for exclusive local streaming rights, plus performance bonuses based on subscriber growth and engagement metrics. The partnership would nearly triple the Mariners' media revenue while providing Stream Sport with compelling content and demographic data. Harbor Tech's naming rights proposal materialized simultaneously, offering $12 million annually for a 10-year stadium naming agreement, including comprehensive technology partnerships and community development initiatives. The deal represented more than corporate sponsorship. It created authentic integration between the team and Harbor City's economic diversification. As Elena's 60-day milestone approached, early results exceeded even Sterling's demanding expectations. Media revenue had increased by 40% through preliminary agreements, corporate partnerships had generated $8 million in new annual revenue, and fan engagement initiatives had boosted merchandise sales by 30% despite the team's continued struggles on the field. Elena presented her progress report to Sterling with confidence tempered by awareness that success required sustained execution rather than initial achievements. The numbers told a compelling story. Revenue increases addressing immediate financial crisis while establishing foundations for long-term growth. Sterling reviewed Elena's results with the same analytical precision she had applied to the original presentation, but her questions now focused on scaling successful initiatives rather than questioning their validity. "Ms. Santos, your community engagement strategy has exceeded projections. How do we maintain this momentum while expanding to additional revenue streams?" Elena's response demonstrated how thoroughly she had absorbed Frank's lessons about balancing profit with community connection. Mrs. Sterling, success requires treating our fans as partners in the franchise's revival rather than simply customers purchasing entertainment. Every initiative must enhance their experience while generating sustainable revenue. The meeting concluded with Sterling's approval to proceed with comprehensive implementation of Elena's recovery plan, including authority to finalize the Streamsport and Harbor Tech partnerships, providing immediate financial stability while preserving community ownership of the franchise's identity. Elena left Sterling's office with satisfaction of meeting impossible deadlines while maintaining authentic community connections, making the Harbor City Mariners worth saving. But she understood the real test lay ahead, proving her strategies could sustain success through multiple seasons and changing circumstances. Chapter 5: The Final Score. 3 months after Victoria Sterling's ultimatum, Elena Santos stood before the Harbor City Mariners Board of Directors with comprehensive financial data that would determine not just her career, but the future of professional baseball in Harbor City. The conference room overlooked Lighthouse Stadium, where early morning sunlight illuminated a facility transformed from financial liability into community asset through innovative revenue strategies and authentic fan engagement. Elena's presentation began with the numbers that mattered most to Sterling and the board: revenue increases that had exceeded every projection while establishing sustainable foundations for long-term growth. Her voice carried the confidence of someone who had mastered complex challenges through determination and community support. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elena began, "the Harbor City Mariners have not only survived the financial crisis that threatened our existence, but we have established a business model proving that community connection creates competitive advantages that pure profit maximization cannot match." Sterling listened intently as Elena detailed how each revenue stream had contributed to the franchise's remarkable turnaround. Media revenue had increased by 68% through the Streamsport partnership and improved local television negotiations, generating $36 million annually compared to the previous $12 million. The streaming deal alone had revolutionized how the team reached audiences, creating interactive fan experiences that enhanced engagement beyond traditional broadcast consumption. Digital viewership exceeded projections by 30%, Elena continued, with displaced Harbor City residents worldwide subscribing to maintain connections with their hometown team. Our social media engagement increased by 400%, making us one of the most digitally connected franchises in baseball. Elena's corporate partnership strategy had transformed sponsor relationships from transactional advertising purchases into authentic community investments. Harbor Tech Stadium's naming rights deal provided $12 million annually while creating technology partnerships that enhanced fan experience and operational efficiency. Additional sponsors have embraced our community integration approach, Elena explained, generating premium pricing through authentic association with Harbor City's identity and values. Total sponsorship revenue increased from $3 million to $15 million annually, proving that companies will pay premium rates for genuine community connections. The presentation continued with data showing how fan engagement initiatives had created measurable financial benefits beyond traditional metrics. Community Pride Nights had become the team's most popular promotional events, generating sold-out crowds and social media engagement that attracted regional and national attention. Merchandise sales increased not just in volume, but in profit margins, Elena noted, as fans embraced premium products celebrating authentic community connections. Our new local artist collaboration line sells out within hours of release, commanding prices 30% higher than standard merchandise. Elena addressed sustainability concerns by presenting long-term projections based on conservative assumptions and multiple scenario planning. Her analysis showed that revenue strategies implemented during the crisis had created foundations for continued growth regardless of on-field performance, economic conditions, or competitive challenges from other entertainment options. Our success demonstrates that treating fans as partners rather than customers creates sustainable competitive advantages, Elena explained, presenting comparative data from similar market teams that had embraced community-focused strategies. Teams with authentic local connections consistently outperform those focused purely on profit maximization because they create emotional investments that transcend typical consumer relationships. Frank Morrison, now elevated to Senior Vice President of Operations, supplemented Elena's financial analysis with operational insights, demonstrating how community engagement translated to practical business advantages. Vendor relationships had improved as local businesses competed for association with the franchise's revival. Employee retention had increased as staff took pride in community impact, and facility utilization had expanded to year-round programming, generating additional revenue streams. Sterling's questions focused on scalability and competitive sustainability rather than questioning the validity of Elena's community-focused approach. Ms. Santos, your results exceed our most optimistic projections. How do we maintain this momentum while preparing for inevitable challenges from larger market competitors? Elena's response reflected her comprehensive understanding of baseball economics and community dynamics. Mrs. Sterling, our competitive advantage lies not in matching larger markets' financial resources, but in creating authentic connections they cannot replicate. Corporate sponsors pay premium rates for association with genuine community traditions, fans spend more when they feel ownership in the franchise's success, and media partners value content that generates passionate engagement regardless of market size. The presentation concluded with Elena's recommendations for continued growth. Expanding digital content creation to monetize the team's story year-round, developing player development programs that created valuable trade assets while building community connections, and establishing foundation programs that strengthened ties between the franchise and local organizations. Sterling's response exceeded Elena's most optimistic hopes. Ms. Santos, your transformation of this franchise demonstrates that community engagement and financial success are not competing priorities, but complementary strategies. The board has approved your promotion to Chief Revenue Officer with authority to implement comprehensive expansion of the initiatives that have saved our franchise. Elena felt overwhelming relief and satisfaction as board members congratulated her on achievements that seemed impossible just months earlier. But her greatest pride came from understanding that the Harbor City Mariners would remain in Harbor City, continuing to serve as the community's heartbeat for future generations. The meeting concluded with Sterling's announcement that the franchise had not only avoided bankruptcy, but achieved financial stability, positioning Harbor City among the most innovative and sustainable operations in professional baseball. Elena's community-focused approach had generated profits while preserving authentic traditions, making the team special. Later that evening, Elena and Frank watched a capacity crowd celebrate the team's improved performance, both on the field and in the financial statements. The Mariners had rallied to achieve a winning record, but more importantly, they had demonstrated that small market teams could thrive through intelligent management and authentic community engagement. Elena reflected on her journey from overwhelmed analyst to confident executive, understanding that saving the Mariners had required not choosing between heart and profit, but proving they worked best together. The StreamSport partnership had created new revenue streams while enhancing fan experience. Corporate sponsorships had generated premium pricing through authentic community integration, and fan engagement initiatives had built sustainable competitive advantages. As the crowd cheered a walk-off home run that secured the team's playoff position, Elena realized her greatest achievement wasn't the financial turnaround, but the demonstration that professional sports could honor both modern business realities and timeless community values. The Harbor City Mariners had become a model for how franchises could succeed by treating supporters as partners rather than customers. The final scene found Elena teaching a group of young fans about the business side of their beloved team, explaining how their support directly contributed to the franchise's success. Every ticket you buy, every piece of merchandise you purchase, and every game you watch helps keep the Mariners in Harbor City, she told the attentive children, whose parents had worried the team might disappear forever. Does the business part take away from the game? Asked a young boy wearing his cap the way Elena's father used to, brim low and eyes bright with curiosity. Not if we do it right, Elena replied, smiling at the memory of her father's wisdom. The business side helps the game continue. We charge fair prices, we don't sell things that hurt the feeling of being here, and we listen to you. When we make mistakes, we fix them. The most important thing is that you keep loving baseball, because that love is what makes everything else possible. As fireworks exploded over Lighthouse Stadium in celebration of both the victory and the franchise's survival, Elena understood that the business of baseball succeeded when it honored the communities that made the sport meaningful. The Harbor City Mariners had proven that diamonds and dollars could coexist, creating value that extended far beyond financial statements to touch the hearts of everyone who called Harbor City home. The lights of the stadium reflected off the harbor as fans streamed into the night, carrying the joy of victory and the satisfaction of knowing their team would continue representing their community for generations to come. Elena's gamble on community-focused revenue strategies had paid off in ways no spreadsheet could measure, proving that the business of baseball thrived when it remembered that behind every dollar was a fan whose loyalty made the entire enterprise worthwhile. The crack of the bat would continue echoing through Lighthouse Stadium for decades to come, a sound as enduring as the community that had refused to let their team disappear. Elena Santos had learned that in baseball, as in life, the final score mattered less than the game itself, and the people who made it worth playing.